Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing a pen from Kaweco. I've looked at a couple of Kaweco things last year and wanted to look at this particular model. It is the Kaweco Student, and this is the 60s swing version. There are a number of different versions available, and some are available only in different countries and whatever the case may be. And so this is the 60s swing with that olive green and then the ivory resin. There is a blue one, an orange one. There's a full black model, a demonstrator model. There's, depending on where you go, is like a red and a vintage blue. Plus there's the sort of the more modern sort of pinky one, and then the brown, which I think looks absolutely stunning, which I think is the 20s jazz version from memory. This is a pen from Kaweco, and Kaweco is probably best known for things like the Sport, but this is one of their models I don't think gets quite enough attention. It's a nice pen. It's a smaller pen. I'm going to go over the parts and features and then talk about a couple of things. The first thing I want to point out straight up that really hits home with a pen like this is nostalgia. Firstly, they've given it names, like decades. So as I said, this is the 60s swing, and as I said, it was like the 20s jazz and the 30s blues and stuff like that. They've partnered them with colours that are sort of vintage inspired, like this olive green with the ivory, and then sort of a dusty blue with the ivory. As I said, there's the brown with the ivory, and the orange, of course, with the ivory, which is probably the best known model of this pen. But they were definitely going for nostalgia. The actual name is named after the customers who supported the Kaweco store near Heidelberg University in the 1880s. So the student model was made to, show, support to them. And it's a nice, simple model of pen. As I said, it's nostalgia, so it's, it's a tribute to youth and vitality, but with a little bit of a modern sort of flair. Let's start at the top of the pen. So on the top of the pen here, we get the Kaweco logo, which is on the top of a lot of pens, and a little metal medallion, and we get that peaked dome there, and then the cap swells out slightly, and then down to a gold band that says Kaweco Germany. And you get a little step down onto the barrel swells out to the end cap where you get things like the injection molding divot. The clip is quite a nice looking clip. It's got a sort of nice shape and profile to it. It's cut into the cap there and then attached with a screw on the inside, and it's relatively flexible, definitely usable, and it's a nice sort of size and shape for this pen. The cap unscrews in about one turn and reveals a metal section, gold trim, same as the nib and the clip. You get a little step down onto the threads. The threads are absolutely smooth, and then you can feel the step down onto that metal hourglass shaped section there that goes in and then out. And it's a small nib, about a number 4 sort of size, and a simple plastic feed with Kaweco on it there. It is a cartridge converter pen, and it is standard international, but I'm going to say that with a caveat here. Firstly, I have just taken a empty ink cartridge and filled it, it's actually a Kaweco cartridge, and filled it with a Robert Oster ink because I wanted to match the colour. I find that finding international converters that fit Kaweco pens that are not Kaweco brand converters can be a bit tricky. They require quite a large bit of sort of plastic at the front to really hold it into place, because it doesn't just naturally stay on the nipple that it sort of goes into the little bit that goes into the cartridge. So it actually has to sit quite strongly into here. Most cartridges seem to fit. Most. Things like Urban and Kaweco definitely do. So if you are looking to use a converter in this pen, my best bet to you is to get a Kaweco converter. I think the Schmidt K5 will fit, but a lot of other brands just simply will not. The Kaweco Student comes primarily in fine and medium nibs, but I think depending on, once again, on where you go, you may be able to get a couple of other nibs for this pen, extra fine and maybe broad, but fine and medium were the ones I could find, particularly here in Australia. Time for a size comparison here. I've got it next to a Lamy Safari and then the Kaweco Sport. So you can see it is a smaller pen. It is considerably smaller there than the Lamy Safari, but of course it is not a pocket pen in the same way that the Sport is. Uncapped, of course, you wouldn't write with the Sport like this, but just for consistency, you can see it's an okay size against the Lamy Safari, but it is definitely sort of on the smaller side. You can see there that the section is also considerably narrower than the main part there of the Lamy section. When it is capped, it is still much longer there than the Kaweco Sport, and it is still a little shorter there than the Lamy Safari, and they've got a similar sort of, bumped that, sorry about that. They've got a similar sort of sized nib, different styled nib, of course. So it is as I said, this is a smaller pen. So what are the dimensions? We have 131 millimeters when it is capped. It is 119 when it is uncapped. It's a little small in the hand. I find this to be just a little bit small, and that is a combination of the length of the pen, but also the narrow section at about 9.5 millimeters. It just feels small in the hand. So you think, oh, you can post it. And yes, you can. But this is an issue I have with a few pens where there's a considerable amount of weight comparatively in the cap here. So the whole pen weighs 24 grams. 9 in the cap and 15 in the body. So yes, while there is more weight in the body than in the cap, that's in comparison to the pen and the size of the pen, it puts a bit of weight on the end there. And what I find is I find that feels like then that I'm pinching a little bit because of that narrow section there. The length of this is 160 millimeters when it is capped, so it's a good length, and you don't feel that step down off the cap too much. And if you hold it back slightly, you don't feel the threads. You can feel them, and you can feel that little step down, but they're not super sharp. So just something to think about. Let's do a writing sample now with the Kaweco Student. So this is the 60s swing. The nib here is the steel fine nib, and it is fine and it is steel. The ink is Robert Oster. Australis T, which is a exclusive collaborative ink with Colt pens in the UK. Okay, let's do the writing. Okay, it is smooth enough. It is smooth enough. There's a bit of feedback, but my kind of biggest issue with this pen is the fact that it's actually kind of dry. It feels dry on the page. This is just some quick writing. You can see it keeps up with all of that. That's not a problem at all. Firstly, I also want to say, like, I love this combination of the Australis T and the 60s swing olive green there. It's a great color combo. Yeah, it's okay. Like, it's a smooth enough nib, as they're not super wet. Reverse, very, very light and dry. I don't think you get much out of it. Flex, no, just don't. Like, it's not designed for it. This is a rigid nib, it is just designed for everyday writing. So you can see it lays down a consistent line, if not a particularly wet line. It's consistent, it's reliable, and if you were using this pen on lower end paper, that dryness may come in handy. Let's now talk pros and cons for the Kaweco Student fountain pen here. Let's start with the cons. Firstly, that grip section. It's slim at 9.5 millimeters, so you do feel like it's a bit pinchy, but also it is, metal, so it does get slippery. I do notice that, and even though it flares out quite a lot, you don't feel like your fingers are going to sort of slip down, but you don't feel like you always have the greatest grip on this pen. An issue I have with this pen, a massive issue, and this goes across the board for a number of pens, is that it does not come with a converter. This is not a cheap pen. Like, it's not an expensive pen, but it is not a cheap pen, and there are a lot of pens in this price range and much lower that can come with a converter, particularly when they are standard international. So not coming with a converter, yes, it comes with a cartridge, but not coming with a converter at this price point, particularly in converter-strong markets such as Australia and the US, not coming with a converter is ridiculous. The other thing I want to say is that the pen doesn't post well. Like, it's secure and it's on there, but like, it doesn't feel the best. And that sort of slight weight balance is a bit of an issue. And it just sort of makes it feel like it's a bit back heavy and pinchy, but then if you don't post it, it feels just slightly small in the hand. So just something to think about. This pen retails for $60 US. And I think that kind of pricing is about right. If you could get a converter in there for that, do it. But I think at 60 US, it's a decent price. Now, the Australian retail price is 129 Australian dollars, which far, far, far is more than the conversion of the 60 US. So I think that's one of those things where you go, this is, you know, Australia once again getting a bit of a rough deal. But there are a number of pros to this pen. Firstly, I think that nostalgic element is really nice. The colours they've chosen and the combination of the ivory and then these sort of more like dusty greens and blues and, you know, oranges and things, it's beautiful. It really is a retro kind of feel to it, with sort of like a fairly sort of classic design shape. The sort of sort of flat tops and everything. It is, you know, it is definitely vintage retro feel. I think when it is uncapped, the balance in the hand, it is a little small, but the balance is nice. A lot of this weight coming down to that metal section there does mean you end up not feeling like you are, like, you know, sort of lugging a pen around the page. And it is an okay writer. If it's a little bit dry, it's reliable, it's consistent, and it does the job. So I hope you found this video about the Kaweco Student, and this is the 60s swing model, to be interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here, or drop me an email which is listed down below. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.